Jason, thanks so much for joining me today.
It's my honor to be here, Morgan.
Oh, it's always my honor to get to hang out with you for a bit. I was really excited to get to come on today and talk with you a bit about some of the things that you and I are mutually nerdy about, which are the tech tools that we like to use in our businesses. But do you mind first off, like just give the audience a quick intro, anyone who's not familiar with you?
Well, my name is Jason Phillips. My company is Phillips Home Improvements here in North Texas, Dallas area. Started my business back in 1997. And uh, those who know me best know that deep down, I really am a tech geek. And I love automation and things like that, anything that can help me get more done. And
Yeah.
I'm a student of leadership and systems and the game of business and all of that.
I love it. Yeah. I think we're really finding now, especially in the trade space, that the tech nerds are starting to rule the world, right?
Yes, probably.
I know that you have Phillips Painting. What other industries are you actively doing work in?
So we started out in 1997 as Phillips Painting, and then soon after we added gutters and roofing, and because they kind of linked together, it's you know back in the day in my area, none of the painters did much carpentry repairs or gutters, and I ended up having to wait on projects, deals to sign because they had to call the gutter company. Well, I got sick of waiting on them. So I'm like, okay, we'll just start doing that. So we started doing a lot of combination jobs, as we would call them. And from there, we started doing roofing, and it's just been a wonderful mix for us.
Yeah, it is a really great mix. It's nice when you can find those different things that are so complementary, and it's really helped you scale the business substantially. Do you mind giving the audience a little bit of a sneak peek into kind of the size of what you're dealing with right now on the ground?
Yeah. So this year we're going to do right at $8 million top line, and we've done as much as 13. A lot of it depends on if it's a huge hailstorm year.
Mm.
And the roofing tickets are on average much larger than the painting sales, which is another reason why I like roofing as well. It's a great
Mhm.
compliment.
So out of the 8 million in revenue that you're doing right now, what segment on that is the painting versus the roofing versus like exterior? I don't know if you keep roofing and exterior kind of.
So interior exterior painting is all grouped together. This year we're going to land right about, just keep things even, about 5 in painting, 2 in roofing, and 1 in
Mm,
gutters.
very, very nice. Cool. So it's really neat to see. I actually wasn't expecting the painting to still be the super majority of the work that you're doing on the ground there.
Yeah, the painting is the most predictable of all of them. Here in North Texas with roofing, it's almost feast or famine, because if we have a hailstorm, it's very easy to do, 4, 5, $6 million in roofing.
Mhm.
But that is all weather related, whereas the painting is more seasonal on a standard curve that we see year after year after year.
Very cool. Something that we've been talking about more at different events and on the podcast, and certainly on the consulting side for some of the work I've been doing. We've been talking a lot about business valuations and what drives multiples. And so, kind of just a quick note, since we're talking about it with your business, that's such a great example of how we can pull in other services that might not seem directly related. And your proof of concept that what you needed to do to run that painting business effectively was exactly what you needed to run these other types of contracting elements within your business effectively. So it really creates a robust nature there for the business. It's you have more a little more stamina on the valuation side too, which gives you more options as a business owner, whether you decide to keep growing, you carve out different parts of the businesses to create standalone businesses in the future. It's just really neat to see how you've done that.
Well, it's worked out really well, and I might say it's the same client. So we're adding more value to the same client, and in their eyes, so many times, even though to me it might be painting and gutters and carpentry repairs, to the client, the homeowner, it's one problem.
Exactly right. It's one problem, and you are there with the solution for all of it.
Yeah.
So cool. Okay, so for the purpose of today's conversation, you and I were catching up at a round table, a painting industry round table. And after the round table, I got an automatic email from your Otter.ai assistant that is also a tool that I love to use, but I haven't seen a lot of other people in the industry adopting it yet. So that was kind of what prompted this specific conversation between us. And I reached out and was like, I love that tool so much. And we kind of got talking about why we both love it and how we use it. So it seemed like a great opportunity to come on and share a little bit about some of the most impactful tech tools that we have. I kind of expect this is going to be a little bit more of a series from you and I. We're going to be spending some more time talking on it because we're really jiving with some of the stuff that we're using. But do you want to kind of start us off by talking a little bit about what Otter.ai is?
Absolutely. Um, Basically what Otter does is it records you can have it on your phone. You can also have it in your Google Meets, your Zoom recordings as well. But basically it transcribes audio into text and saves them in a text file where you can easily go back and search and find who said what. It identifies who the speakers are. And it's absolutely marvelous.
Yeah. I joke with a lot of people that my Otter.ai assistant is the best assistant that I've ever had because you and I were kind of catching up a little bit about how many integrations it has. So you can integrate this tool directly into your Zoom. So if you have a professional Zoom, you can integrate it directly into your calendar. So even if you are hopping around into other meetings like Google Meets meetings, if you're hopping into other people's Zoom meetings that somebody invited you into, your little assistant, your little robot will follow you around and it'll actually look like it's joining the meeting like another person. So that's kind of why I say that it's the best assistant I've ever had. It's because it follows me everywhere. I don't have to direct it, I don't have to manage it. It's just integrated into everything that I'm already doing. And it takes incredible notes, right?
Yeah. So one of the things it does for me is relieve me of the need to try to take notes, and I can actually be more engaged in listening and giving feedback, knowing that it's taking the notes for me and they're always going to be there for me.
Absolutely. And it's kind of interesting too, because so there's that note taking piece. So at its core, Otter.ai is a transcription tool. It's popping in, it's following us around, and it's just recording word for word every single thing that we're saying. So, some of the immediate benefits of that, like you mentioned, it relieves the pressure from us to have to take notes ourselves so you can stay really engaged in the conversation. And it makes it so much easier to go back and revisit those conversations. The difference between how we have transcription now versus what the technology looked like so long ago is that now it's really good at identifying those different voices. So each of our Otter.ai tools knows who we are based on the voices that it's hearing. It's used to other people. So whenever I'm managing teams, whenever I'm doing coaching, it knows everyone that I'm routinely speaking with because I've taught it the names. So it's really nice because anybody that's going back and wants to look at notes from a meeting, you can scan through it and see all of the text broken up by each person's name. And it's searchable, right? So you can actually jump in and you can search different keywords and it'll actually create, different little keyword tags that you can use to kind of hop around in the transcript, which are all super nifty features that I've had a lot of really good use out of. But actually, the thing that kind of prompted my attention because it's a newer feature it was in beta for a while, and I think it's still in beta. But it was what that email that you sent me was from the that round table session we were in was that outline feature. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that outline feature looks like and what it does?
Yeah. So basically, what it does is when you're done with the meeting, it just sends everybody the transcription, so that everybody. I mean, one of the things that we want to make sure is that after a meeting, that everybody has clarity on what did we discuss, what was important, and so I don't want just that to be locked into me. I want everybody to have access to it, and so it helps create a clarity there, which is wonderful. And another thing that's kind of nice, if you go into the Otter website and say you and I have a series or one-on-ones or whatever, I can literally type in there and say, I want to know when Morgan talked about Zapier, and I can filter it by your name and the word Zapier, and I may have talked to 10 people about that, and I can really find out and go right into that conversation when that conversation was a long time ago.
It's incredible. So it makes it so much easier to go through and organize the information from all of the meetings that we're routinely having. And that beta feature that I was talking about as well is that after the meeting's done and it's transcribing the meeting, it's breaking it out into those specific keywords. The tool has actually, it has an artificial intelligence built into it that has recently gotten pretty good at creating an outline summary of the meeting. So the email that was sent to me right after, it had the link to the entire notes series from that roundtable that we were both sitting in on, but it actually, in the email body, it had a really great outline of the main points that were touched on in that meeting. And it's kind of funny because there are actually a couple of things that every now and then I will register for, like I'll register for a webinar or I'll register for a roundtable or something like that, that I don't actually have time to go hop into. But as long as the meeting host sees my Otter and recognizes it and allows it into the meeting, it takes the notes for me, it takes the audio for me, and it makes it really easy for me to see what everyone talked about, go back in, jump to a specific part of the conversation, and actually start listening to it right there. So I can see a specific keyword or see a specific person talking about something, click into it in the website, and actually just start listening to the conversation, which has been an amazing time saver and a great way to catch information if I happen to not be available for something.
That's even better than having someone attend for you in your place.
Yeah,
That's
it
even
is.
better than that, if you ask me. And it's the cheapest assistant you could ever have. If
Absolutely.
you have a lot of meetings, it's a no-brainer.
I fully agree. And so I kind of wanted to just take a minute to riff with you for a second on the different applications that this could be useful for across the spectrum for our listeners and our audience here. So for you and I, we both do a lot of content creation. So Otter.ai, great example of how I think you and I probably use it. We will plug the transcripts from whenever we're recording something, or we're having a conversation about something meaningful, and that transcript is a really useful way of taking notes, going back in, and like for these podcasts, I use it to go get organized on what the main bullet points are. I use it so that I can go back and record an intro later, or redo a conclusion, or let somebody know what the content was inside of it. So there's some really cool ways there for keeping your own thoughts and things organized. What are some of the other things in particular that you find yourself using those transcriptions for?
I generally, my whole team uses these when we are having very important conversations and HR conversations, things like that. All of our meetings, of course, all of our meetings get authored, transcribed, but it's real important when we're having, very, very important meetings, whether it's a progressive disciplinary meeting or whatever. It's there and it's too easy. And if there's ever a he said, she said, literally one time I had an employee come, and a couple of years ago, I've had this tool since like almost day one. I had an employee come and say, well, so and so treated me this way and said this to me in the meeting. And so it was one of my managers. So I called my manager. We had the conversation, and he said, well, why don't I just send you the Otter transcription? And so send it to me. I listened. I'm like, wow, that was nothing like what was represented to me. And
Wow.
so in that circumstance, it helped me. It helped me discern, who was telling the truth at
Hmm.
that point. And
Absolutely.
there's not a he said, she said at that point. So that's one
Absolutely.
way, and another way is just to quickly unload thoughts, because we can talk way faster than we can type. And gosh, my thumbs seem to be getting bigger and less accurate every year, apparently, because of, mistyping on my thumbs constantly. It's just easy, just hit Otter and record and just dictate. There are people that dictate their blogs, they
Mhm.
dictate their YouTube scripts and all kinds of things. And even if you don't format it right, you get that thought out of your head, because thoughts are fleeting. They are fleeting. And, even like, for instance, a lot of people tend to get thoughts in the shower. And it's like, man, okay, I got to hurry up and dry off and get out of here and write this down. So one of the things I'm going to do, I'm literally going to have a MagSafe. I haven't mounted it yet, in my shower, where I can sit Otter right there and
I
take
love
a
you for
note
this.
because that thought is another thought's going to come take its place, and it's going to be out of there. And a lot of times those can be brilliant ideas or solutions to problems, and effortlessly capture those so that they're there
Mhm.
for later.
And like you were saying, with that searching feature, it's so nice because the second something like that strikes you, if you know that you want to revisit it later, you can just say that to it, like this was a shower thought, or this is a value proposition, or something that later on, you can go search those things and you can just find the list of all of those shower thoughts that you threw into it that you want to revisit, which makes it so nice. So this is a really worthwhile opportunity for us to mention. We talked a lot about how the Otter.ai is really helpful for virtual meetings. So it's really great for hopping around on Zoom. It's really great for catching you in those different virtual meetings. But this thing is a great mobile app. So you just install it on your phone, and then anytime that you are having an in-person conversation with folks, if you need to record those shower thoughts, you need to just like say something to it while you're out for a walk, you're spending some time doing something, you just pull open the mobile app. It's one of my, basic shortcuts, hit record and start going. And it's really good. We all kind of joke about our phones listening to everything that we say all the time anyway. They are, which means that when you're intentionally recording it, it's really good at catching audio, even if you're having a group conversation. So yeah, it doesn't stop on virtual meetings.
Well, Morgan, in addition to what you just said, one of the things I appreciate about it is if I have it connected to my Google Calendar, it's going to say, hey, you're 10 a.m. with Morgan's here. Click here to start recording with a push notification. So I don't even have to go search for the app. I just click the notification and hit record, and it's going.
An even better argument for using that block schedule in our Google Calendar, because if you're running your life based on that block schedule, it's right there. It's telling you exactly, when and how. And I really want to emphasize again the point that you made about those sensitive conversations and those things that, like you mentioned, whether it's a sensitive HR conversation, progressive discipline. It used to be that the common, knowledge and wisdom there was you as a business owner or you as a supervisor have to tag somebody else in for those conversations so that you had somebody that could be a first account witness of what was said and what transpired. And this is an even better, more delicate, even-handed approach to that, right? It's straight from the horse's mouth. It's easy to catalog. It's not going to change its mind or its opinion. And it's with you all the time. You have your phone all the time. And so just think about the efficiency there and how much better it is. The next phase of it, I think. So there's that, the delicate, sensitive nature of things, or if we're quickly trying to get some ideas down, but also accountability. So whenever we are talking through things with our teams, we're having production meetings, kind of sometimes it can be the he said, she said. Sometimes people just don't remember. But you as a business owner, I think it's so much easier for you to be very clear on expectations with people and to have that tool to reference back to and say, we had the very explicit conversation. I know that I said X, Y, and Z. You committed to doing something on this timeline. What was the issue here? What cropped up? It's nice to have that self-reference to go back in time, because we're doing a lot of things. We doubt ourselves sometimes. So that accountability and that clarity of expectation piece is so valuable. Everyone you're talking to has access to be able to go back and listen to it exactly the way that you said it, exactly the way that you told them. Suddenly removes a lot of the excuses that people have for maybe not remembering or not doing it the way that they were instructed.
And it's not just, you're absolutely right. And it's not just the text that's saved, it's the audio. You can hit play and you're going to hear the way in which it was said as well. It's genius.
Exactly. So then that next step of that too is actually for training purposes. So this is something that I spent a lot of time teaching and a lot of time coaching on, which is this idea that training, us as business owners or sometimes our key employees, the heads of our crews, training is a big bottleneck. It's a hard thing for a lot of people because we spend a lot of time on training, explaining things to people. And sometimes things have to be explained multiple times. And then the next time somebody gets into that role, it feels like we're rinsing and repeating and having to do it all again. So these types of audio transcriptions and recordings, the ability to read it, the ability to listen to it, it's hitting two nice elements there that people process information differently. So when you're explaining something to them, it's really great that they can go back and listen to you again. They can read what you were saying, because sometimes that's going to be an easier way for people to learn. And it's a really great way for you to feel like you're not necessarily wasting your voice as much, right? I always love talking and teaching to that point that we have to be so specific with how we use every effort that we're putting out as a business owner. We've got to think about those leverage points. If we're going to do something once, what are the ways that we can make that have a lasting impact or have that one action carry forward to multiple uses in the future? Hitting record when you're explaining something, it's not going to be a replacement for you having to train people in person in the future, but it's going to mean that every time you're in the habit of doing that, you're building that knowledge database of things that people will have access to in the future. If you're not there, if they have a question, if they can't quite remember, there's the ability for them to go back and listen to it rather than picking up the phone and calling you or calling the project lead.
And it also, you're absolutely right. And, if how do we know that a gallon of gas is a gallon of gas? Because there's a standard of measure, right? And
Mm.
actually, in Texas, it's at the agricultural commissioner comes around and tests the gallons from every pump every year, and some people get fined for it. So going back to what is that standard? Once you set the standard, then everybody can reference that standard. Rather than being like on a copy machine, of a copy, or one that stands out to me as being from the 80s,
Mm.
is making a copy of a cassette of a cassette of a cassette audio recording. I
Oh
don't know if
man.
you guys are that old, but but making it right back from the standard. Because if I train someone, let's say I'm training the trainer, and they pick up, for instance, let's say I do a pretty good job and they get 90% of what I was trying to impart to them. Well, now they train someone else, and if that person gets 90% of their, well, 90 times 90 is only 81%. So it doesn't take very long for the source of truth to dilute. And that's what I like about checklists, about written processes, and about videos, things like that. We can always go directly back to the source of truth for as our standard of measure.
It's such a good point. So that's why, and so training is great. You can hand this to somebody in a specific moment that you've taught them something. They can reference their own meetings with you. But what I think is really beautiful about this is that a lot of people have overlooked the ability that this gives us to create standard operating procedures so much more effectively and efficiently. So when we're talking about the capabilities of this tool, it's really good at identifying what it is that we're saying. You can go back and listen to it. You can make little corrections on the typeface. But what's really cool about it is that you can then export that script. You can take the transcript, take the wording, put it into a document and reformat it. And now you have a step-by-step list. You have a written out SOP of exactly the way that you were training someone to do it. So that doesn't have to stay living in Otter.ai, right? So now we put that in our knowledge database. Now we can set that somewhere where it's part of our routine training systems. It's part of our manuals. It's now the actual step-by-steps in our Trello boards or Monday ClickUp, whatever it is that we're using. It's taken straight from your mouth or whoever is teaching it. And now it's removing that need for you as a business owner or anyone else in your organization to have to sit down and think about it and type it out. So it's removing almost 2 or 3 of the really onerous steps and creating those types of things, that documentation. That's such an important part of our business.
Morgan, I don't have a lot of patience, and I need those leverage points. I want something that if I'm going to do it more than once, if I'm going to do something twice, I will probably spend 10 times as much time to automate it so that I never have to deal with it or rethink it again. It's like, I've
Mm-hmm.
already thought through this. Let's immortalize this. Let's write it in stone. And that way it can just keep rolling.
Mm-hmm.
And so
And so much easier. And so much easier to delegate too, right? So if you are able to talk things through, and so this is actually one of the original uses that I was using Otter for, was with my executive assistant. So for a while there, it was really important for me to pull myself out of my inbox. But the tricky thing there was that a lot of the things that people were sending to me in correspondence, they needed my direct insight. Like they needed something from me, some piece of knowledge that lived in my brain. So what I would do is, as on my morning routine, whenever I would get up every morning, I'd grab coffee and I would hop on the phone or actually on a Zoom conversation with my executive assistant. We would enable the Otter.ai, and she was a couple of hours ahead of me. So she would actually have prepped the things that she needed to discuss with me. And we would just run through them really quickly. She'd say, so and so said this. What's your response? What do you need? And I would be able to rapid fire tell her that needs to go to Rachel over in the tax department. That needs to go to this team member. Ask them explicitly XYZ, get a response, respond to that person. And I could just run through the correspondence, and it was all being transcribed so that now all of those pieces took me 10 or 15 minutes to talk through them, even though there were multiple layers of delegation and coordination that needed to happen there. And it empowered her as my assistant to now be able to go very specifically handle all of those pieces of communication, making sure that the right people had the right information to get it back for whoever needed it. So, that's just one really specific example of how empowering that can be for you to be able to push some things off of your plate and make the other people around you, give them the tools to work even more efficiently.
That's genius. The thing I like about that is you could just send an audio file, and then they're going to be getting pause, back up, all of that stuff. But you're sending them the text, and they can just add, hit hard return, add their own bullets, and they've got it right there. It's going to be so much easier to follow instructions from text than from voice in that, if you ask me, in that particular scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple more of the features that we didn't quite have a chance to discuss yet within the Otter.ai platform is that whenever somebody's going back and they're looking at those notes from those conversations, they have the ability to create highlights. And these are collaborative transcripts, right? So we're sending these out to an entire group of people, but somebody like your assistant maybe goes back and looks at the outline, and then they highlight a couple more additional notes, and they can create tasks. They can create assignments and accountabilities from things. So for production meetings, for anything that you're doing, talking to key members of your team, anything that's accountability related, you can flag it, highlight it, and assign it to somebody with a due date. There might be some integration capabilities there with some of the task management systems. I don't know for sure, but that's at least a really great first step into identifying, what was important in the prior meeting. So if you're running, an EOS style L10 meeting or something like that, we've got those accountabilities, those things that we addressed. Such a great reference point to have. So much more useful for your assistant or your admin to go through and say, these are the things I need to pull out and prep for the document outline for the next time round.
Absolutely. These things, as running a business, you're dealing with 1,000 things. You're living in a whirlwind. And these automations should simplify our life, right? Let's have the computers do the work for us. I used to be a diehard Windows guy back before the cloud. I had a whole rack of servers. I wrote my own CRM, all this crazy stuff. And I was constantly spending time diagnosing why this printer driver didn't work, or why Windows was giving me the blue screen of death, all of those things. And finally, one day I said, you know what? I'm sick of this. I'm done working for computers. These things are supposed to work for me. And I switched to Mac at that point, and I have not looked back. And so I literally want, if the computer, the software, the process, if it is not going to empower me or my team, I don't want it. It needs to make life better, not worse.
Absolutely. And what a testament to your ability to stop and reorient on what needs to be done, because you'd already sunk so much time and effort and energy into those systems. That's pretty powerful. That's profound.
I did. And I'm thankful that I'm not the slave to the computer anymore.
Absolutely. So, in terms of how tools like this can work for us, and since we're talking very specifically about Otter.ai, because I think, kind of like we've mentioned already, there's so many great ways that this can impact and make your life as a business owner and the lives of your team significantly easier, which is why I wanted to spend some time unpacking it. The overarching value of what we're driving at here with this tool in particular is, I want you to think as a business owner about anywhere in your business or anywhere in your life that communication is a problem. And a lot of the times, what I hear from business owners is that there's not enough communication happening. So, a good example earlier this week was plumbing business that I'm working with, talking about how hard it was for them to get enough detail about scope of work, project scenarios from their estimators on the ground, so that when somebody came out to produce a job or do a project, there are little details and little things that were living in someone's head that didn't make it over to the next person that had to show up on the job site or communicate with the business owner. Super relatable and applicable, right? We try to think about ways to capture that information. We usually have documentation that we're asking for, but there's always, a few different little things there that might not make it. And also, when we're recognizing the fact that as business owners, sometimes it's hard to ask ourselves to stop and slow down enough to write something down or type something out. Things are going to get shorted, things are going to get missed. Think about how handing them, the ability to just pull out their phone and hit record, that little prompt knows that they're there for that appointment. So they just start recording and talking through something. They could be recording an entire conversation with a client, and then at the end say, okay, here's my summary. And now, instead of asking them to stop and write something down, you've maybe given them a bullet point of points that they just need to talk to their phone about. It's going to make it so much easier for every other person that has to engage with that project to know exactly what they're dealing with, exactly what the concerns of that homeowner are. you can level it up a little bit and use a tool like Loom that also has these transcriptions built in, but actually get some visuals in there too. So just the ability for this tool to streamline so many parts of your business and make it easier for your people to give you what you need or give someone else what they need kind of blows the mind to think about.
Empowering your people with this. Okay, as business owners, it's one thing to make yourself a personal powerhouse, right? But to be able to give them the tool and show them how it's useful. And that's a perfect scenario. I'm out here with the client. Here's my summary of what we're doing. Send that text to someone and have them attach it right to that project work order, those bullet points. And so it's right there for the next guy. And it's way, especially people in the field, they're great at talking. They're not great at documentation so many times. Make it easy for them to do the right thing. And the beautiful thing about Loom Loom is basically a tool that does a screen recording, and you talk along with it. And if you're trying to demonstrate anything, a process that is on the computer, Loom is the easiest thing in the world. You don't have to save files, whatever. You hit record, you tell it, what part of the screen you want to record. And when you're done, the file is uploaded, and the link to to share it is already copied to your clipboard. And so there's no saving files, naming files, and all that mess. It just makes it super easy and seamless. It removes the friction for you to share it with your team, so they know how to do the walkthrough. We do that with all types of training. We recently did one, for instance. We run our phone system is Ring Central. Okay. And Ring Central is a very complicated back end when you have a lot of extensions, call queues, and setting the business hours and all the different voicemail boxes. Or, we want this to automatically, on New Year's Day, we want the calls to automatically go to voicemail and play this "we're out of office" voicemail, right? And then at midnight on the 2nd, we want it to go back to the regular business hours. And if you're not careful, I'll tell you a mistake that was made a few years ago. One of our people calls in, is like, "Hey, our phone's going directly to voicemail." I'm like, "What? What's going on?" That's 911 in my business, in my world. So I get on there and find out someone had gone in and after a holiday had changed the hours, but had done it in a wrong way. And it sounds so simple, but you can change the hours at the extension level, at the call queue level, at the organizational level, all this stuff. And it was causing all of our callers to be sent directly to voicemail. So what I did, first thing I did, is I fixed it and I locked everybody out. Okay. I had 2 people that had access to that. And like, nope, that's never happening again. Right. So I went through and I made a training, and I used Loom, and I recorded exactly what I was doing. Here's exactly what to do. Here's what not to do. And I made a few bullet points, and I put it into our knowledge base. And so now I have 2 people that are versed in that and aren't going to mess it up.
Yeah, they're cleared and they know how to do it. Yeah, so it's like the exact same thing. We're talking about all the benefits for Otter.ai with the transcription ability, the ability to go back and reference it. But Loom has some of those same transcription abilities with that visual element that makes it so much easier for people who need to see something. It does the screen recording, but Loom is another one that you can get on a cell phone and you can record with the camera. And like we were talking about, it's so nifty and easy because it is automatically uploaded. You don't have to download things. You're not trying to attach video clips. It's just already on the cloud, really easy to organize for people by project or by whoever's accountable for it. And everyone can see it. It's so much easier for everyone to just have direct access to information than we ever had before.
Absolutely. And those tools, when I say, is it going to make things better? Is it going to work for me? Is it going to remove the friction? Because if there's friction, people aren't going to do it. Let's make it super duper easy. And that's what Loom and Otter, they both make things easy to capture information and share information.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So, we're used to struggling occasionally with different types of tech tools. So that's what I love about these, is that these guys, between Loom, between Otter, they're really easy to just start with. They're really easy to plug in, kick off a video here, kick off a video there, get in the habit of having that little Otter robot follow you around. And when you need it, it's there. You can go back and check on it. So That's always what I like to bring our conversations back to, is going to be the practical next step. If you want to implement something that Jason and I were talking about here, maybe there was one specific use case that we mentioned that really stuck out to you as one of the major problem and pain points in your life, or somebody in your office. I would say, like, pick that one use case in that one scenario and think about giving this tool a try. They're both incredibly cost effective. I think at the time of this recording, maybe an Otter.ai subscription for professional accounts, maybe like $10 or $15 a month. I think Loom is about $5 to $8 per creator. Again, really, really cost effective things when you think about how much headache they can save you. So that's what I love to tell people. Think about that one thing, see if you can implement it in one use case and how it helps. And then you can kind of just keep working it from there.
Yep. And by the way, on Loom, I think additional guest creators up to videos up to 5 minutes, I think they're free.
I think you're right. Yeah. Videos up to 5 minutes, I think, are pretty much free. It's just
Yeah.
if you want to do something lengthier. And there's a little bit of even basic editing and snipping in there. So if you want to, cut some stuff down because it wasn't perfect the first time you said it, or, somebody doesn't need to hear the first part of whatever you were saying, then that's such a great, useful feature for everyone too. So those two tools are probably top of my list for recommending to people to give them a try and see how they might work for them.
Let's be honest. There's no reason to not get both of these tools. And I don't own stock in any of them, but there's no reason not to have both of these in your arsenal. They're too easy to use, add too much value.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, with that, I think we left you guys with a lot of really good information to kind of chew on regarding these two tools. Jason and I share a love of these types of tech tools and the ways that they can be implemented to make our lives easier in our businesses and also in our personal lives. So I am certain that we're going to have Jason back on, maybe do some more webinar live streaming pieces where we can actually see and walk through what these things look like. So be sure to take a look. Jason, where can people get in touch with or follow you if they want to kind of stay engaged with you? Because I know you create a lot of content.
Okay, the very best place is just to go to jasonwphillips.bio, B-I-O. That's just my digital business card, has links to my blog, all my social media profiles. It's jasonwphillips.bio.
Awesome. We'll make sure that we put that in the show notes. So anybody who's listening to this, you should be able to just click on down. You can find Jason there. Jason's a great friend. And we were just discussing earlier, we are both going to be getting to hang out in Albuquerque the very end of February. I think it's February 22nd through 24th, where the Painting Contractors Association, our ally association here at the Pro Painter Network within the industry, is hosting their national expo. It's the largest painting industry event of the year. Jason's going to be out there speaking. I'm going to be out there speaking. It's going to be a really cool opportunity to see some of the most interesting people in the industry, meet some of your peers, and get to hear some more about all the wacky, cool things that we're all doing in our businesses. Thanks, Jason.
Hey, thanks for having me on today, Morgan.